ocean. We'll always have waves in motion.
Ryan, it's wonderful to see you. Where are you located on the planet?
I'm in New Jersey.
Okay.
And I'm in Florida.
Okay, so yeah, I'm in Kansas City, so we got kind of like a triangle going here.
Little triangle.
I hope not the Bermuda Triangle though.
No, this is a safe triangle. This is a jazz triangle.
Jazz triangle.
I love your artwork in the back of you. That's great.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm a visual artist, so that's a part of what I do.
I love it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. Well, hey, it's so great to meet you. What a great project. I am so glad to convene here to talk about it. So thank you for taking a minute out.
Absolutely.
You're welcome. Good to be here.
Thank you for appreciating it, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love the music. I love it all. So let's get into it. Before we get into this specific project, we're hitting the 5-year anniversary of this pandemic. And it was such a big deal. It changed so many things. We had to go through the unknown, and hopefully we came out better. So ultimately, maybe with this project and in general, what did living through the pandemic do to change your mindset or to embolden you more with projects?
Well, we had launched the film that we did, the documentary about making this record, right about when the pandemic really took hold. So that was really a drag. I mean, we had a lot of really great feedback. We won a couple awards with film festivals, and then everything stopped. So I think it took us a little time to regroup and get it together again because we had momentum finally, and then the momentum completely shut down. So this is a joyous record, and I think if you're looking at what's politics or the environment or whatever it is in the world that makes you not sleep at night or be worried, I think that this music is a beautiful antidote to feeling bad. It can make you feel good inside. So maybe it'll be even more needed and wanted, by people.
Yeah.
And just as a footnote to Jeannie, the music for the album was actually completed a little over a year after the accident. So the accident was in 2009, and then the beginning of 2010, the whole album was completed, and it's just been in storage since until now. And as Jeannie said, the documentary was actually finished probably right before the pandemic.
Right,
So
right.
it didn't affect the album, the pandemic, but it did affect the
Yes.
right, and it also affected the release of everything, and that's one of the reasons why it's taken so long for this to come out.
So talk to me a little bit about Coleman. Talk to me a little bit about the album, the vision. Just kind of give everybody out there, weave together the tapestry of what we're looking at with this project.
Barry, it's funny. I just came across, I was looking through some old pictures and I found in Coley's handwriting the list of the songs that he intended to have on this first record. And there was one that wasn't on there because he hadn't finished it. But this was something that he absolutely, like people say, well, was his vision to make an album? I mean, Coley was a working musician. He worked with Chuck Mangione. He taught. He worked with me. He did a lot of different stuff, and he was working on this music for over 10 years, right, Barry? I mean,
Yes.
about 10 years. And so this was kind of like not to be one that would ever slow down or not learn something new. Coley just was kept on going with these tunes, but it wasn't like, he had a calendar and said, we'll release album by this date. It was just what he felt inside and had to do and had to write these tunes. So it was just very fortunate for all of us that I had introduced Barry and Coley just months before he was gone. And I might have called Barry to do this, but the fact that Barry knew Coley and felt so strongly about how good his music was, that it just was very fortunate that that happened, because otherwise I don't know what I would have done, Barry. I don't know what I
Right.
would
Yeah.
have done.
We I had started working on the project with Coley before he passed away, several months before that. I've known Jeannie for many, many years, like since the 80s. And then when she introduced me to Coley, I was living in Cape May, New Jersey at the time, and they would come down and perform. That's actually how they met at the Cape May Jazz Festival many years before, not many years before that, but a number of years before that. So that, by the end of 2008 and the beginning of 2009, Coley asked me whether I'd be interested in working on his demos, a project. Obviously, his intent was eventually to do an album. And he sent me some material, which was different than what I had known him as a guitarist. But these were like singer-songwriter, jazz, pop, a whole different thing with lyrics and everything. And I thought it was really beautiful. And he said, well, maybe you could put a couple of keyboard parts. I said, absolutely, I'll do that. And he said, maybe you can help me just figure out how we will, proceed with this. I know his intent was, everything was in a demo form. So I put on some keyboard parts, but everything else was sort of like Coley playing and singing, and then synth sampled drums and bass and keyboards and stuff that were just sort of a placeholder. And he had intended to replace all of that with live musicians at some point. So maybe there were about 3 or 4 songs that I was working on with him. And then my wife and I were out in San Francisco, and we heard the same day we heard the news, what had happened. And one of the first thoughts in my mind is that the music is so beautiful. Maybe there's a way to be able to complete this, but I don't know whether that would be appropriate or how Jeannie would feel about it. But actually, she approached me at the same time. We were thinking the same thing. So a couple of weeks after this happened, and I believe it was on March 1st of 2009, Jeannie said, if you want, me, Barry, and Ron DeCesare, who had worked with Coley before on a previous album of his. He also said, I'd love to, be any part of this to help engineer this, have use of a studio that he had was working in New York. So anyhow, on March 1st, Ron and I came to Jeannie and Coley's house, and Coley had the hard drives that just had his music on it. It wasn't personal stuff, but it was just like the music. And Jeannie said, let's see what we have here. And we didn't know what we were going to get ourselves into. So we took off, copied whatever we could. And some of it was the things that I was working on. And there was some other songs that weren't even really demos yet. They were sketches. Everything was in a different state of completion. So it took Ron and I a few months to sort of take everything off of there and then assemble things. The idea was to get all the guitar, his guitar and his vocal off of there so we could replace it with live musicians. But these were demos, that were just all composite, all put together. So it was a lot of forensic work putting that together. And I won't go into all the details of it, but it took a while. So the next step was to say, okay, now we actually said, yes, we can do this. There's 11, 12 songs that could be put on this. It could be an album. It's not just 3 or 4 songs. And then we said, let's see whether we can find some musicians to do this. And that was actually the easiest part, because so many great musicians that I knew, that Jeannie knew, that Coley knew, stepped up to the plate and just offered their talents, or contributed their time and their talent to do this. And this were people like Steve Gadd, Will Lee, Larry Goldings, my brother Terry Silverlight. Jeannie sang a little bit on it, Natasha Roth, and
Chuck.
Yeah, and
Chuck Mangione.
And Chuck Mangione. And then finally, there was like one song on there that Coley sang. I said, boy, oh boy, it sounds like a song that could have been written by James Taylor and Carole King. Like if they had a kid, that would be the person who wrote this song. So I said to Jeannie, maybe, who knows, maybe there's a way to ask James Taylor whether he'd like to play some guitar on it, just a rhythm guitar, because he had Steve Gadd and Larry Goldings were on tour with him. So Jeannie got a letter through Steve Gadd, and I don't know, they were somewhere in Portugal or whatever.
Portugal, yep. I faxed something there and sent an MP3, and I mean, it was just a dandelion in the wind. Just let's see what happens. And then we didn't really know, but did we, Barry? And then a couple months later, we get the phone call from James's engineer saying, "Oh, by the way, he's recording Coley's tune this weekend at the
in his home
barn."
studio.
And we were
Mhm.
like, "Ah, it was just unbelievable. What a generous, beautiful thing from all the musicians."
Right,
Just
and so yeah, and he also put on some background vocals, which we didn't ask for. And anyhow, everybody did their part. Some of it was done in New York, some of it was sent in. Steve Gadd recorded his drums in Arizona, in Tempe, Arizona, and I recorded my
Berlin.
stuff at my place. So it was all Berlin, Germany,
Yeah.
everywhere. So now we had all the music, the musicians and their tracks. Then the next step was to put this all together and to mix it. And then basically about 13 months after the accident is when we had, all right, we have an album, and that was completed.
So, the thing about music is it's this mysterious force that moves us. We feel it. It's the unified language. There's just things about it that is full of signs. So, from the spirit and of Coleman, did you feel him? Have you felt his spirit and his presence and his blessing that this project is finally getting completed on the other side of this
A
reality
hundred,
of
a
ours?
hundred percent. 100%. First of all, Coley was beside himself that he could work with Barry. I mean, when that went down, he was on cloud nine. Couldn't believe his good fortune. So the fact that Barry was the person to do this, and I still say I don't believe there's anyone else in the world, literally, that could have done it either with the musical integrity that Barry used, because Barry could probably arrange for a 56 piece orchestra, but he didn't. He made this record really with Coley's intentions in mind, and there's no question about it. I knew Coley very very well, and so yes, he was all through this project because and then that also led to why I waited so long to get the film right, because the film is about the love of the musicians, and that's what I wanted to show, that people could come together. Some people never even had met him. Will had never met him, and just said, "Let me do this. Let me add some of what I can give to this." So it was so much. Coley was in everybody's mind and heart in this project. There's no question about it. So
Yeah,
absolutely yes.
yeah, and I felt his spirit and feel his spirit through his music. I mean, it wasn't like I was working on the project and I said, well, what would Coley do here? And channel, all that kind of stuff. It was more like I already knew what he would do. He told me what he wanted to do.
Yes.
All I had to do was just follow the roadmap, which was hard to do because the road was all over. There were many different roads and everything. So it was just sort of a puzzle, putting it together. But his presence, to me, is in the spirit of his music itself. That is there now, and it'll always be there.
I think Natasha Roth, who sang and whose husband James also played, she said something really beautiful in the film. She said, sometimes when you hear somebody play, you can know whether you'd like to know them as a friend. You can get who they are from how they play. And Natty, said in the film, yes, with Coley, you hear him play and you know that you already like him. You want to know him better.
Mhm.
So I think his music really projects who he was as a person. If you listen to his music, that's who he was as a person.
The one thing about the world of jazz and music in general is our appreciation for it is as strong as the history that we understand about this. And when we talk about the spirit of this music, the early practitioners, Dizzy Gillespie was undoubtedly one of the most infectious individuals that ever graced this music. And Arturo Sandoval talks so glowingly about him. I remember at one point I asked him, I was like, was Dizzy like that when we didn't see the cameras clicked on? And he was like, absolutely. So
100%. Yes.
my question to you is, as his daughter, When did you realize that he was this force?
Well, from the beginning. I mean, one of the questions I've been asked in my life about, well, what made me want to be a singer? And, of course, my mother was an incredibly talented songwriter, and she's really who raised me. So, so much of my musical aesthetic and how I sing is because of my mother. But I would see my father on stage, and I would go as a little kid, and the beautiful interaction between musicians on stage, I think really called to me. And I didn't realize that until people kept asking me this question over the years. And finally I said, I think being back there and the camaraderie and the real love and just this beautiful connection between people on the stage when you're in the right band, when you got the right people around you, there's nothing like it. It's like family. And the joy is just the audience gets to feel it, but really it's happening up on stage between the people making the music. So I think yeah, I kind of always saw that and always loved it. And even though I was not kind of a showbiz kid, like I was not a kid that did music as a child or was kind of pushed by my mother. I think what drew me to it was that incredible closeness, especially since I had such a small family. My musicians in my life and my band members became my family. And of course, Coley was in my band. I mean, that's probably part of the reason I fell in love with him too, was just that he was just so infectious on stage. I mean, you look over and see that grin and, oh my God, we're having a party up here. So, yeah, I think that that's part of how many of us fell in love with making music. Maybe we all didn't want to be on stage, but you kind of had to go with it because that's how you keep on making music if people watch you and like it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's part of it.
Yeah, and that's what you took that thread and went right through the tapestry full circle. That's what I was getting at was the embodiment of that spirit. And
Yes.
my question to both of you is this. For anyone out there that just picks up this album and doesn't understand the history of it, that doesn't understand the players and the magnitude of the spirit that went into this, and they pop it in, what do you want them to understand, not only about Coleman, but about the cast that began this, stopped, picked it back up, and now distributing this is not only a recording but a film? What do you want them to know about everybody that's synergistically been a part of this project?
That they have the hugest hearts and empathy and respect for the music that I can imagine. I couldn't imagine anybody putting as much into this as they put into it. I honestly can't imagine it. So you hear that. I mean, uh, you hear it, you feel it. I don't think anyone would have to tell anybody anything about how the musicians were feeling. They're going to feel it.
Yeah.
Right. It's
Speaks
it's
for
good.
itself.
It's good for people to know about how it came about and what it is. And of course, the documentary itself sort of tells that story. But if you're, a listener and you're just having a cold listen and you're just putting it on, the music obviously needs to speak for itself. Like if you didn't know the name, whether it's Coleman Mellett or who's playing on it or whatever, my approach was to bring out the intimacy and the joy in the music, to make everything like close up, like he's with you in the room. And then the rest of it is that the music speaks, the words that he sings, that he created those lyrics. That is something that speaks to an audience or speaks to the listener. And the same thing about his voice and his playing and everybody else that plays on it. So hopefully, people. I think the music is very accessible. He had a lot of influence that came that he was had listened to. There's obviously the jazz influence, but then he listened to a lot of music, pop music, pop jazz music but sophisticated music from the 70s and the 80s, and that shines through his music as well. But he had a very personal voice, of his own, incorporating all of those things, and hopefully the listener will take that away from, take that with them when they listen to it. Other than liner notes to tell how it came about, but I think the important thing is that to make the music available for people to hear, and I think they'll really enjoy it.
Jeannie, you mentioned up front about the power of music right now in this very weird, strange world we're living in that is continually getting more and more bizarre, and how well and how much music means to people and how we need it. And I think about a jean jacket that I have, and I literally got a promo. I had a PR person send over buttons that said Dizzy Gillespie for president, and I have it on my coat now. And it just makes
I
people
have one
smile.
too
Yeah.
from the 60s.
Yeah, and it's awesome. And when people see it, like I just realized the other day, my wife helps teach theater at a high school, and I walked in and someone was like, "Do you have any politically charged things on there?" And I was like, "No, it's all fun." And even that button is so much fun. And the reason why I bring this up is that I wonder with this album and albums that are coming out and in general, how much do you believe we need this music to kind of blot out what we're living through to make us feel better?
I think it's very needed. I think any anything filled with um, a positive outlook, love. Coley sang about nature a lot, our garden, the flowers. This is I'm sitting in my living room surrounded by my crazy jungle here.
Awesome.
I I think it's very important. It's always been important to me. I'm hoping people will step back and take a listen to things that are meant to bring good feelings up instead of hatred or bad or anything like that. This record is 100% love. And how can that not be positive if you're listening to it?
It's love and joy and beauty. All the songs are that. They're all positive. There's one song that talks about sadness, the Okayo, and the whole idea of the song is to take that sadness away. It's almost like a remedial song,
Yeah.
talking to someone in particular that Jeannie and Coley knew, and I won't go into the story, but what he's doing there is saying that, dry your tears, things
We love you. You can
right.
come to be with us,
And that's really
Yeah.
the only song that has that. Everything else is just all of love to Jeannie, love to the beauty, nature, and it's all about that. And so I think that's a good medicine for anybody listening to it, to just sort of take their mind off of all the weird things in the world which are going on and have been going on.
Even
Yeah.
rainy days. Rainy days is, if you're feeling blue, well, it might be raining, but don't worry, because right down the road, the sun's going to come
The
out.
sun's
Right.
So
going to come
even if he writes a song about a rainy day, at the end, the blue sky is there,
right.
Yeah. So the most important part of this right now is to make sure that we shuttle everybody to the right place to pick up the album, to pick up, to watch the movie, to indulge anything and everything in regards to this project. Where is the best place to go?
All right. Well, right now, because my brother-in-law Zeb and I did this without record company help, without any big corporation helping us. So right now we have the record available on all digital platforms everywhere, iTunes and Spotify and Pandora, everywhere. And the film is not. I just showed it last weekend. Actually, had a wonderful thing down in Asbury Park. We sold out. This theater has 3 theaters. We started out with 1 theater, sold out all 3 theaters. It was a love fest. It was beautiful, and I did manufacture some CDs for that, so people could. If they see the movie, they're going to want to hear the music. And right now, if they can hear the music on digital platforms. But my goal, my wish would be to cut some vinyl for this beauty. I'd love to see this in a big old record and put it on the record player. Coley was a huge record collector, as was my mother. I've got some pretty special records upstairs. And so I would love it to come out on vinyl, for the discerning music listener, But right now, digital is the way to go right now.
And I will put all the proper links out there. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for the story.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you so much. Hello, friends. Joe Domino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Domino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedomino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words.